Hello and welcome to ThePrint. We have with us Ashwini Mahajan, who is the national co-convener of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, which has been raising a host of issues related to India's economy. And recently it was in the limelight after RSS General Secretary Dattatreya Hosable, he attended a program where he red flagged issues of inequality, unemployment and poverty, which was seen as an admission by the opposition that, the Modi government has not been performing well. Well, what does it all mean? What are the issues that are there for the Indian economy that one needs to take into account? We will be asking him a host of these issues. Sir, to begin with, Dattatreya Hosable's statement has created a political stir. Many are saying that, this is an admission that the Modi government has not been performing well. The opposition is saying that these issues we have been raising, and finally now that it is coming from someone from the Sangh, within the Sangh, at least now the government should take note. What do you have to say?
You see, the issue of unemployment and the problem of unemployment has been there for very long, for decades. And especially after the adoption of the new economic policy in 1991, this problem has increased enormously, and that was admitted even by our previous Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he said that this GDP growth is actually a jobless growth.
Right.
So he had been saying it time and again, and therefore saying that this so-called inverted commas admission of the existence of the unemployment is actually not correct. The issue at hand is that these economic policies, and especially the kind of model of development which is generally accepted to be the only way to improve the lives of the people, is not proving to be beneficial to the general masses. And this GDP growth model is basically the model which says that we need not think about the distribution, we need not think about unemployment, we need not think about the inequalities. And therefore, what is required is that this model needs to be changed.
Right.
This thinking has to be changed. And how can you change the thinking? That is, whenever you are thinking about growth, the GDP growth, increase in production, at the same time you should also think about whether this growth is leading to creation of more jobs. If it is not leading to creation of more jobs, it is bound to lead to unemployment, poverty, inequalities, because those who are poor, they are unemployed, or those who are unemployed, they are poor. And therefore Swadeshi Jagran Manch and host of many other organizations, they decided that why can't we work together to fight this menace, what Dattaji said, demon of unemployment and poverty. And we decided that this demon can be defeated, but can be killed only by way of creating more jobs. And we have to come out of the mindset that jobs means only the government jobs, jobs means only the jobs in the multinational corporations or the private corporates. Jobs means, employment means, people are gainfully employed. And India has the distinction of being a country, a nation of entrepreneurs. Because if you look back into the history, for thousands of years, our country has been a land of entrepreneurs. We had been supplying to the whole world and exporting to the whole world and getting gold for our goods, and because no other country was able to export to us because we had been producing the best of the goods, and therefore our country was called golden bird. And we want that this history must be repeated, and our entrepreneurs should be given a chance to grow themselves, to come out of the inertia of joblessness, and to how we can do it. Society has to come forward,
Right.
because entrepreneurs, they find several problems. If suppose I want to start an enterprise, I may need funds, finance. I may be requiring some technological support. I may be requiring the support of the market, and this government schemes are there, but government schemes have got limited reach if society is not coming forward, and therefore we decided to form committees throughout the country at the district level, involving the MLAs, MPs, then technocrats, then the small scale entrepreneurs, then all other businesses and social workers. All of them can help a budding entrepreneur to come forward and create more jobs for himself, and at the creating employment for himself and creating more jobs for the jobless youth. And this is what we have decided to start Swawalambi Bharat Abhiyan, and Dattaji was speaking at that Swawalambi Bharat Abhiyan program itself.
Which created such a political stir. So, there has been this global turmoil that we have been witnessing, the war in Russia, Ukraine. How do you see, in respect of that, the challenges for the Indian economy, keeping that in mind?
You see, India has always been finding opportunities of the crisis. When there was crisis of corona, we found opportunity that yes, now we can think of becoming Atmanirbhar, self-reliant, and we started doing it. We adopted production linked incentive scheme. We tried to stop imports from China, from other countries, and we also adopted several other measures to increase the production at home, and by substituting what we had been importing earlier. So that was opportunity created out of the crisis. Similarly, now when the Ukraine war is going on, we find that many of the countries are facing problem of food.
Right.
US and European sanctions, they thought that they will be able to finish Russia with those sanctions, but actually these sanctions are actually biting these Western countries themselves, and these Western countries now are facing huge problem in terms of availability of gas and oil, and several other problems they are facing. And therefore if we see, except US, all other currencies are depreciating, and their economies.
But our own currency is depreciating.
But this our currency and other currencies all are depreciating, but our currency's performance is better than all other currencies, and we can discuss that point as well. But the very question which you have asked, that this is an opportunity for us, that we move towards more of self-reliance, more of Atmanirbharta, and as we are getting now the news which is coming in from the Western countries is that they are facing huge recession. US is also getting into recession, and India has got the opportunity to increase its production. And if you see, in the last few quarters, our GDP has been growing at a much faster rate. We have become the fastest growing economy of the world, whereas the Western countries, the developed countries, they are into recession. Their GDP is contracting. As we see, US GDP has been contracting for the last 2-3 quarters consecutively. So this is an opportunity for us, and we are not facing any problem because of the Ukraine war. We are not facing problem of food, we are not facing the problem of availability of gas and oil. Rather, we are getting cheaper oil and gas from Russia. So I think our geopolitical efforts are moving in the right direction.
You just mentioned that our currency is still, in a better position. Why would you say that?
You see, if you look at the depreciation of Indian currency and the depreciation of UK's currency, pound or euro or yen, all currencies have depreciated nearly twice or thrice that of Indian currency. Why all these currencies are depreciating is there is a universal admission to this kind of attitude of the foreign investors, foreign portfolio investors and others, is that whenever there is a turmoil globally, they tend to move towards US as a run for the safe haven. So because of that reason, there is a momentary depreciation of Indian currency and other currencies as well. But in the long run, when US economy itself is contracting, when they are facing the problem of recession, when they are facing the problem of non-availability of food and the food inflation and other kind of inflation. If you look at the inflation rate, our inflation rate is 7%, US inflation rate is 9%, UK's inflation rate is more than 9-10%. And so if we look at these situations, whenever the GDP is contracting, inflation rate is high, these economies are into trouble. But ours is GDP is growing, inflation is much lesser, and I think we are able to manage our economy much better than any other economy of the world.
Well, another crucial issue is that the RBI has been raising rates to contain inflation. But the fact remains, many say that it is not helping. So there's a friction that has started between the RBI and the government, with many in the government pointing out that it is affecting growth. So how do you see these increase in rates? Is RBI on the right track by increasing?
And in fact, this friction or conflict in the ideas of the government and the RBI is nothing new. Okay. This has been going on for decades. Every time when RBI says that we want to control inflation, this is our 4% plus minus 2%, and this we have to maintain. Otherwise, the economy will be in trouble. Monetary Policy Committee is an autonomous body, and therefore this conflict has been going on for decades.
Sure.
And there is nothing new about it. But the question is that when Federal Reserve, they are raising rate of interest, there is a problem of movement of capital from one country or the other to the other. So if we have a lower rate of interest and Fed has increased its rate, the investments will move away from India, and therefore it's not just for maintaining the price line, it's not just for controlling the inflation, it is also an issue with regard to the foreign investment, and the country cannot afford that to allow the foreign exchange to move from India, because that itself is an issue. as we had discussed earlier, about the exchange rate. So we can't allow our currency to depreciate or more. Therefore, for the time being, when Fed is raising its rate of interest, it becomes essential for India also to raise the rate of interest. But yes, whenever you raise the rate of interest, inflation can be curbed to some extent, whether it is right or not. But this is accepted fact, and but growth is adversely affected.
Right.
So I have always been writing that we must keep the rate of interest low so that we can give a chance to the growth. But under these circumstances, when there is a global turmoil and the Fed is also raising its rate of interest, it has never happened earlier. So since they have started it now, therefore it becomes essential for us to do something about the rate of interest. And I think RBI in this case is on the right track.
Okay. And sir, freebie policy, there has been a lot of discussion on freebies politically. There are experts who have talked about it. Many say that this is something that, is not good for the long run. At the same time, opposition has also been raising the issues of freebies because the matter has also gone to the court. How do you see this entire concept of freebies, especially not just before elections, but, when governments announce freebies?
In fact, we as Swadeshi Jagran Manch, we have been saying for long that freebies are not good for the development of the country.
Right.
See, we have to distinguish between the freebies and welfare. If you provide education free of cost, if you provide health services free of cost, if you provide good public services, roads, public street lighting and others, then it's not a freebie. And some people try to confuse that they are providing free education and therefore somebody is objecting to it, and that should be ridiculed. No. Freebies are actually those goods which can be priced and which should not be provided by the government, because in economics we always say that the resources are limited. Public revenue is limited, and for example, if you look at the tax GDP ratio, overall tax GDP ratio, taking center and the state together, it's around 16 to 17% of the GDP. In other countries it is much higher, but in our country the GDP, approximately 10% of the GDP goes to the central government as taxes, about 7-8% goes to the states as taxes. These are limited resources. So these resources could either be used for development of the state or could be used for giving freebies. Which one would be preferred? Obviously the development. Now in this case, let's talk about Delhi.
Right.
In Delhi, during Sheila Dikshit's time, Sheila Dikshit was not BJP.
Right.
But I'm saying that during Sheila Dikshit's time, the rate of growth of development expenditure, the capital expenditure, was 20% per annum.
Okay.
Approximately 20%, 19.6% to be exact, during those 15 years. And in the first 5 years of Arvind Kejriwal's AAP government time, this rate of growth has come down to nearly 9%. This is on nominal basis. On real basis, it is much less than that. Therefore, as a result of this is getting reflected in the development, the lack of development efforts in Delhi. No new school, no new college, no new hospital, no new flyover. Nothing has moved in Delhi. Therefore, if when somebody says that I am providing these freebies for the poorer section of the society, then he is not speaking the truth, because poorer section of the society requires good transport, good roads, good facilities, so that they can lead a better life. If we are providing free electricity to one and all, that means those who could have paid for it are actually not paying for it. Therefore, that much of resources would not be provided for the development of the city, development of the state. And this is a kind of contagious disease. This disease spreads to other states also, because if somebody says that I'm getting votes because of these freebies, other political parties will also say, okay, we will also provide freebies, because ruling is more important than the development. So that means the political aspirations would overrule the development of the welfare of the people at large. Therefore, what I'm saying is that we need to do something about it. That freebies are actually a kind of bribery to the voters, and this bribery has to be stopped. This we need to, whosoever is, whether it is this party or the other party, this has to be stopped by law. And we have to provide, because in economics there is a concept of public goods. Public goods are those goods which, if they are provided by the government, they will get better benefits for the people at large. And if these public goods are not provided by the government, then it would be not good. Therefore, we need to provide public goods by using public resources, by using the government resources. But private goods, like somebody giving Mangal Sutra, cycle, laptop, or free electricity, free water, that is actually not welfare.
So, but the opposition counters it, by saying that, loans of industrialists are waived off. At the same time, they say, we have done good work in terms of, I'm talking about Delhi, because you mentioned Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party says, which is in power in the state, they say that, they have come up with Mohalla Clinic, they are providing free, water, they are providing free electricity, and they are saying that, if the public is happy with our work and we have the means to do it, why not?
They don't have the means, I have explained. They don't have the means. They are cutting off the development expenditures and providing these services. And they don't have the means. They are actually bribing. So, this is the duty of the government to provide the free health. This is the duty of the government to provide education to those downtrodden, those who need their help. This is the duty of the government to do all these acts which they are claiming to say. But if they are giving free water and our water services are getting ruined, if they are giving free water and the loans on Delhi Jal Board has increased from 28,000 crores of rupees to 61,000 crores of rupees or even more, so in future these services will further be destroyed. They will further be impacted. And similarly, if 3,200 crores are being distributed for providing free electricity, this is not welfare. This is not welfare. Welfare is, we have to provide and that I have explained to you that had they not provided these freebies, we would have made better roads, As we see the condition of the roads today, we would have, if we had made more flyovers, our lives would have been better. Had we been, had we, if Delhi Jal Board had more resources, then they would have provided water to more areas. That they didn't. Therefore, the government has to do what its duty is. The government's duty has never been to provide free electricity to everybody. The government duty has never been to provide free water to everybody. The government's duty is to provide the public services, which they are failing to do.
Well, moving on, privatization of public sector banks, has become a major topic of, debate in India once again. What is your stand on this? What is Swadeshi Jagran Manch stand on it?
See, per se we are not against privatization, but when it comes to the public sector banks privatization, we have reservations.
Right.
In the sense that, there are private sector banks, there are public sector banks. If we say private sector banks are more efficient and public sector banks are not efficient, this is not correct. Because ownership of any institution does not make it efficient or inefficient. This we have been saying from the very beginning. And public sector banks have a role to play which private sector banks will not be able to. If we look back, after Narendra Modi ji took over the reign of, we know that he came out with a wonderful scheme of Jan Dhan accounts. And with the help of those Jan Dhan accounts, we could start with the JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar number, mobile banking. And that resulted into the distribution of the benefits directly to the people. And one of our previous Prime Minister had once said that if we send 1 rupee, 85 paisa is just leaked out, and 15 paisa only reaches the poor. In this case, full 1 rupee is reaching the poor. So that means this JAM Trinity has been having a huge benefit for the people at large, and government has also been able to save a lot by cutting out the wasteful expenditure. And the government has been claiming that we have been saving more than 1 lakh crores every year because of this DBT and because of the JAM Trinity and other things. Now, if we do not have these public sector banks, who will open the Jan Dhan accounts? If you look at the Jan Dhan accounts, we find that in the 45 crore Jan Dhan accounts opened so far, more than 90% of these accounts have been opened by the public sector banks. If we look at the share of public sector banks in the total loans and the deposits, it is 65% only, but they have opened more than 90%, 95% of the Jan Dhan accounts. Therefore, all these government schemes can be implemented only with the help of public sector banks, because private sector banks will not do that. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what we need to do is to strengthen the public sector banks. Public sector banks, if we want to make them private, it is better to run them efficiently first, to bring in more efficient management, to reduce the intervention and interference of the bureaucracy, and after making them efficient, then bring IPOs, make public the partners of these public sector banks. If you and me own public sector banks, or the government of India owns public sector banks, it doesn't make any difference. But if you hand over the public sector banks to the private sector, there is always a danger that these public sector banks will be transferred to the foreigners, because nobody in this country has the ability to purchase public sector banks, and the foreigners are looking for purchasing such huge entities, and therefore this should not be allowed. So we need to keep public sector banks within Indian ownership, and best would be if you and me own these public sector banks.
Well, I've taken a lot of your time. Just one last question. This is the second tenure of the Modi government. How do you view the recent, economic policies of the government?
You see, I would say that the latest economic policies of the Modi government are actually spectacular, wonderful, in the sense that for the first time I find after 1991 that somebody is talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Somebody is talking about discouraging imports. Somebody is talking about manufacturing everything at home. Somebody is talking about making our villages Atmanirbhar. Somebody is talking about making this India the superpower in defense, in electronic, in everything. And if you look at we have created a negative list for import of defense goods. Definitely it's going to be to bring us more of self-reliance in defense. Then we are self-reliant in payment systems, and that is as a result of that now we can claim that we don't need Western SWIFT. We can have one-to-one transactions with other countries, and we are Atmanirbhar. We are self-reliant in payment systems. We are getting self-reliant in electronics. We are getting self-reliance in 5G. We are getting self-reliant in many other ways, and it is just a start. Now we have a production-linked incentive scheme for 15 sectors, and including electronics, textiles, solar, semiconductors, and so many other areas. And I think this should move on.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thanks for joining. This is Neelam Pandey reporting with Urchita Bhardwaj for The Print.